So Natasha, back to you. If you could just touch on why you think DeFi is important.
I think one important thing is defining, as I just mentioned, it really reduced the limit of those regional restrictions. Like if you are in a very centralized financial system, and there are a lot of things that is restricted, but in DeFi everything is different, and it also reduced the cost of international financial transactions. I think this is a very great point. And as a world, as the international world is coming together, it's like coming, it's like moving to a big associated hub. DeFi can be more and more important under this kind of situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, one of the other things that has been coming up a lot in the crypto world recently is trust. And, we saw it with the wormhole hack and various other hacks in recent times. So I guess one question that we have is how do you engender trust in DeFi?
You have to live like your whole purpose is safety, right? I think like if you really want to exceed as a protocol in DeFi and you're not just here to be like a flash in the pan, you have to like play with like security and safety as your number one. And so we have very rigorous safety standards. So with any of the protocols we're interacting with, we go through a whole audit process to make sure that the code looks good. We have like a team of 10 or 12 Solidity developers. So we're actively looking at code like pretty much every single day. So and most of it, honestly, right now, decentralized finance is, there's someone who comes up with a concept, right, or develops a code base. And then somebody forks that code base and makes it, improvements or better. And then somebody forks that code base, and it's like this, continuous loop. And so, because of that, it makes it a little bit easier because you can kind of like look at trusted code bases and say, okay, well, we know this works or this doesn't work. And you can look for like malicious, functions that are kind of added in there. And then it's also like anything that can possibly take custodial or custody of your funds, has to have some sort of protection in it, right? So like the contracts themselves, maybe you have to have a time lock or have, a multi-sig wallet or, something that can help prevent it from being exposed. So I think like, as a protocol, you have to take all of those different actions, right? Like, so if you're going to interact with partners, you're going to build on top of other protocols, it's on you to make sure that, you're interacting with, safe and trusted protocols. And then at the same time, your code base has to be secure. So if you're having, some sort of, centralized control function, make sure that it's not like a EOA or just a normal wallet that's in control of it, where somebody can, possibly get hacked and their keys get stolen, and all of a sudden they have centralized control of your protocol. So there's a lot of I think safety measures protocols have to take. So the longer I think you're in this world, the more trust you can build, because obviously you've been here long and you have this now history of everything you've kind of done and whether or not you've, sort of been exploited or had issues before. And the second time, I think it's being transparent with your community about here are all the measures we're taking in order to make sure that everything is safe. If there's something that we do as a protocol have control over, we're very transparent about our communication about that. So if we have a function that has centralized control of things, then if we're going to let's say, we have a time lock in place and we're going to execute some sort of action that's going to move something, we're transparent with the community that this is happening, right? So I think there's a lot of things as a protocol you can kind of do to build that trust. But unfortunately, it's hard enough to understand. We're just talking about actually interacting with DeFi. So it's even harder to understand all of the stuff behind the scenes to make sure that, I completely, you kind of just have to have blind trust sometimes because people don't know how to read the code, right? So what can we do to prevent the blind trust aspect and be as transparent as we can about our security and safety standards? And I think, some users rely on audits and stuff, but I think it's really on the protocols themselves to make sure that they're trying to do everything they can to remain safe and keep the space safe.
Yeah, transparency is always a big point in terms of security, and I think in DeFi one another great feature is everything is on the chain, so everything can be transparent for to our users. Even if some users cannot understand those complex smart contracts, but they are still transparent, and you can check all the data, all the records online. I mean on chain. And also Netswap is communicating with our community about every big step of our security upgrade. And also we are using the multi-sig wallet now, and in the future when the DAO function opens, we will have the time lock. So and yeah, everyone can check it on the Andromeda Explorer.
Yeah, that was an important thing, right? Like I think as a user, if you're going to start interacting with all these different contracts, it might be helpful for you to just make sure that they have verified contracts on the Explorer. I see that as a major flaw. So a lot of times, and that's I think one of the interesting issues, right? Because sometimes people, build a code base and then they're not open source. You really can't see any of the code, and then they don't verify it on the Explorer. So you have no idea what you're interacting with. And then, sometimes they'll say, okay, well, it's because I don't want to give away like competitive advantage to somebody else. Well, in this space, it just doesn't work like that. We need to be as transparent and open as we can. Try to keep your source, if you can, open source is better, but if it's not, at least get it verified on the Explorer so people know what they're interacting with. So I think that there's a few things, like as a new user to maybe like DeFi, a few checks you can do to, like, we always say, do your own research. I think it's important as a user to do your own research, and there's a couple like safety checks you can do to help, make the place a little bit more, I think, safe for yourself.
Yeah, that's also something I want to say to those new DeFi users, because when you're using like centralized exchanges, they are not transparent. Their system, they are like how they deal with their funds. It's not transparent. You cannot say it, but in DeFi you are able to check it yourself. So so do your own research.